Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of HeadCoachU. I'm Bryan Fischer, joined as always by former BYU and Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall. And we got another special guest on this week, Washington head coach Kalen DeBoer. Kalen, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Yeah, it's great to be on here with you guys. Thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get into a lot of the details with the program and you guys taking over there on Montlake. But I got to ask, a number of your predecessors have been able to boat to work. You guys have one of the great perks of the job in terms of being able to kind of boat in right into the stadium and into your football facility. Are you a boater? I know you're a South Dakota guy, and so you're a bit landlocked. Are you one of those guys as well?
I'm not there yet. Where I'm looking at it across the stadium here, and it's a great setting, as we say, but haven't got to that point yet. But it's certainly something that's a pretty cool feature to have here.
Kalen, one of the things that I think is so unique about college athletics, and it's not quite as prevalent now. There used to be an age where a school or even an NFL team was kind of defined by their head coach. And I think back to when I was growing up, and Don Shula and Chuck Noll and Bud Grant, and there were institutions. And at Washington, as I was growing up, Don James. Now the sport is a little bit more transitory, and coaches don't stay quite as long. However, as I was thinking about your transition to Washington, and wow, what it's always fun to have immediate success. So when you went to the University of Washington, did you anticipate, or did you know what you were going into? Number one, did you anticipate the success that early? And maybe what were the draws, just as you had a successful stint at Fresno, and kind of what moved you there?
Yeah, first of all, there's been a lot of great coaches that have come through this program, and fortunate to add to the list. Got a lot of big shoes to fill, but Don James certainly is the one that this program kind of is connected to. And it's a special thing that he built over many years, and laid the groundwork along with all the great alumni. But because of that and the tradition that exists here, and there's a piece to it where I just feel like there's this blue collar kind of type of thing that I connect to, kind of being from the Midwest and South Dakota. It just knowing it from afar and kind of seeing what the success was. And as I got to know it, the program better throughout, really the kind of, interviewing process, I just really saw it as a great fit. And I'm so lucky and fortunate to be here. Surrounded by great people, community that, each and every week, just as the week goes on, ramps up towards Saturdays. And, there's other great things to do in a metro area like Seattle when it comes to the NBA, the NFL and NHL and Major League Baseball. But, there's one major program here, and on Saturdays, Saturdays are for the dogs. And that's certainly evident by what, fans do as far as packing Husky Stadium and the energy they bring to our program, and it's when you go 11-2 and, you asked, did I foresee it? I think that, when you have programs like this that have that foundation, I think it's easier to revive it. And just having met the players in December when I first got hired, it just came across as like, these guys are here not only just because they believe in the program and know they're going to be developed because of the resources we have, and it's going to be fun while they do it, but they also, are here for a great education, and there's some other pieces that they were recruited to in this program that mattered. And guys got great heads on their shoulders. And so from that end, and knowing that players are the ones that really end up making the plays, it doesn't surprise me that we got to that point, and that they've put the work in to have the success we had.
A couple of things that you mentioned that resonate with me at some point, and some folks say it and some mean it, but you mentioned being grateful to be in the position you have, and wow, there's lots of pressures and there's lots of visibility, and that can be really viewed in a couple of ways. It can be viewed as a challenge or an opportunity, and I think the head coaches that, and I'd love to hear your perspective, that really last the longest and are the best for the players are the ones that feel grateful for the position that they have. And I think that resonates to everyone around you, and gratitude goes a long ways, especially when it's shown from the leader. And And so as we were talking before, the chance to be a head coach is just, it's a magical opportunity. It comes with a lot of responsibilities, but how do you remain grateful just for the position you have, and what's that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, having an attitude of gratitude is going to be a core value, just a piece of our program that coaches, players, staff are all going to have. I mean, we're just never going to lose sight of that. And how many people would love to be in our shoes? And I go back to being just a small college coach that, and thinking about where I started and never imagining that something as far as being at Washington and being the head coach of all that, that would be where I'm at. And that was never even really the aspiration, the goals. It was just loving coaching football and loving having an impact on student athletes and their lives, and enjoying being around great people that shared the competitiveness and that I did. The strategy is a lot of fun, right? The game of football has just so many things that you can kind of control, but just never forgetting the journey and how great it is. I wouldn't trade it for the world. My college days, I was playing in front of a crowd that probably would be equivalent to our band section, right now. And, so that's something that just, I won't forget. I loved it. And, that shaped who I am today, because I had a mentor in my head coach that, we made the big time where we're at, as Frosty Westering would say, from Pacific Lutheran, and Coach Young was my mentor, and he had me read that book in 2000 when I first started as a offensive coordinator for him at the University of Sioux Falls. And that attitude of gratitude and just putting one foot in front of the other and working where your feet are at and giving everything you got is all I know.
Do your players know about your start or your playing career, right, in Sioux Falls, and do they know about you starting as a high school coach, and do they know about, right, Southern Illinois or Eastern Michigan, right? Do they know your journey? Do you leverage that?
I don't know if they know much about the playing piece. I don't know if all that stuff really matters. There might be a couple that have done a little more and are intrigued by those type of things, but I think what they do know is here the last few years and coming from Fresno State and the staff. We got a lot of staff that came with me as well, so they've seen in the early cut-ups as a first year staff. There's a lot of cut-ups that come from that program, and so they kind of know that the more recent stuff. But I think they do know that I came from more of a small college and kind of have that journey. They may not know exactly all the stops along the way.
Have you found kind of I'd love to hear about, maybe if there were differences maybe in the mindset or what the players were like maybe at each of the levels or stops that you've been, and also maybe leadership principles. Have you found those to be consistent regardless of state or level, or have you found maybe subtle or specific differences just as you kind of moved, right? Has the consistency of the players just kind of struck you, and the leadership style and who you are, or have you found differences maybe that are larger than that?
I think I still hold true that I think the players I have here and that are 20 years down the road of coaching, or 20 plus years, I still feel that they want the same thing. I feel like they want to be pushed to be their best. They want to be loved. They want to, but they have a competitiveness that I don't think's changed. I think what's changed is the environment around them, from the social media standpoint and just all of that, and instant gratification that, they necessarily feel should come their way, but what is being told to them and how, it happened to these people, so it should happen to you. And, it's changed around them. I don't know what I would be if I was in their shoes, because it's just so much different. So I feel like in all the stops, I think what's changed is just time, and not necessarily, because of the levels or all that. You surround yourself with great people, and they're highly competitive. There's just a lot of similarities when it comes to the values and we call them non-negotiables that we have in our program. It's the same pyramid I used, 20 years ago, and at different stops, it's been as an offensive coordinator. So maybe it's changed a little bit as far as like more offensive related, but the core values and the character traits that I feel are important are exactly the same. And so we teach and really hammer on those each and every day in our program like we did back then.
A couple of things you mentioned that, man, resonated right. And the combination of, you said pushed and loved. I just read a great study regarding leadership, and it talked about each one of those independently does not produce exceptional results, right about the 60%. So if all you do is push, there's about a 60-ish, 67% yield. If all you do is love, it's almost identical, but when they're combined, it becomes this magical formula for success. And so the terms in the study were different, but pushed and loved is the essence of what it is. And so I think one of the keys, and it sounds like that's what you do and how your program is run, is you can push and love at the same time. And sometimes the pushing is defining your care for a person, your love of them. And I think some people think just because you're pushing or demanding, that means you don't care. I think the masterful coaches are the ones that when they push, the players actually know it's a demonstration of their care.
Yeah. And it all starts with the relationships, right? Because there has to be a trust that's built. That's okay. That when I say something, it's not personal. It's all about, this is what I see. And this is what I see that you need to add to help be your best. And, I want the same thing for you that you want. I think that message only comes through when you have strong relationships, and, that vision that you have for them, really doesn't matter until they have that trust. And so we really, when we first got even here to Washington, it was just the whole coaching staff and building the trust. And it was, the guys are interested, like what offense we run, what defense we're running, where might I line up? How are we calling this? Now they want that right now. And it's really fun. It's cool. It's exciting. But, in the end, it's a lot of it was just sitting around a table at lunch, and just asking them where they're from and just hearing their stories. And so you can connect and understand what they've gone through. And, at some point, all those things matter, when it gets to a tense situation, and you can draw on like, okay, this is why he responds the way he does, or this is, how I can connect with him and him better feel good about how I understand what they're going through. And so everyone's got their own story. And I think it's important to understand, those stories as best as you can as you're growing that relationship.
Yeah, it's fun because the players, right, most everywhere, even if the team hasn't had success when you inherit a program, it's not that they don't want to win, and it's not that they don't want to work hard, and it's not that they don't want to. Sometimes there's just things that have gone on, and when you're taking over a program, I've had those questions: what scheme? What's my role? What's our style? What's the identity? And that's a great sign because they're eager and interested. One of the things, though, that you mentioned is there's almost a sequence that really none of that can really come to fruition without the trust that you're saying. And there's a cool book, Stephen Covey wrote it, called The Speed of Trust. And the results that you had in the time frame that you were under, right? And the head coaches, there's not much time now, right? Because of the yield that's expected, and with the ability for players to change and transfer and et cetera, it's probably 2.5 years unless you show significant results. And if you don't, that's probably the window. And so the gratification that comes from building relationships is awesome. But also, man, the faster the trust is established, the more likely you are going to have the results that you need. And so I always have loved the term of the book, Speed of Trust, because here's trust, which is usually built slowly and over time. But here's the speed part where you don't have much time. But once you get trust, everything just starts going so much faster and better. And so it sounds like that's kind of what's happened there.
I agree. I stole that from you here, so I'm writing that. And I'm going to find that book. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I agree. And it got to the point where this off season, I really felt like it mattered because that trust. Because our guys never flinched when we asked them to do something. They got to the point where they just believed and trusted us and the process that we had for them and how we do it and what it's supposed to look like. And they just never flinched. doesn't mean that we were perfect by any means, but I just really loved the way, and I think the guys saw the process lead to results, and that helps us now in year 2 as we're going through it. This January looked, completely different than last January, and they're in better shape, of course. Their season went longer and things like that, but just the energy that they're bringing and the belief, and it's just helping our new guys that come into the program just buy into the culture even more, and those little details. And I use all the cliches and all the same things every coach does, but I think when you really make it who we are, and it's who I am as a coach, and it comes out every single day through our coaching staff, it might be a little different angle all the time, but I think when that happens, that's when they really believe, like, okay, this is important to our success. This is how we do it. And we're getting to that point. We're never going to take it for granted, because every year the dynamics change on who the leaders are and who really believed in it. That might have left your program now as a player, as a senior leader that is doing things behind the scenes that back in the apartment complex or down in the locker room. But we're well on our way, and I appreciate our guys for their trust in us.
One of the things that you mentioned too that I think resonates, and wow, do results matter in terms of credibility, and the processes lead to the results. And so, man, when you have year 2 after a successful year 1, the credibility and the trust, and you can lose trust quickly as a leader based on things that you say or actions. But wow, when you have the foundation already established and then new players arrive, the influence of your existing team that's experienced the process and the results, wow, does that have a magnifying effect on those coming in? And it doesn't mean the coach's role necessarily diminishes, but wow, are you supported usually more by players on your team sending the message, hey, this is the way we do it, and this will work. We've just experienced it. And so you get that extra help from members of your team, it seems like. Yeah,
we have so much care. We call it care for our culture, every single day matters. And like you said, you can build trust, and then all of a sudden, all it takes is one thing. It might be me overreacting to something that in the past has never, been that big of a deal, or that trust factor can just drop off just like that. It doesn't, not just in football, but any organization, any relationship. And so, we every single day, we have that care for our culture and building that trust and not taking it for granted.
One of the things that we were talking about before the show, and it ties, I think, into this line of conversation we're having, the impact of a single player that can have on your team, maybe at a position by his ability, but also just maybe by his presence or leadership or personality and his ability. And so I had a player at the University of Virginia named Wayne Talapapa, and he was a captain for us at the University of Virginia. This is for our listeners. And when I stepped down, Wayne Talapapa ends up going to the University of Washington and playing for Coach DeBoer and becomes a captain as well. And to me, it's magical. There's almost a tipping point sometimes where a program is almost ready to break through. And I'm not saying this was the case with Wayne, but you add the right player and the right leadership, and it just, wow, there's just almost like rocket fuel that was just added to your program. And so the power of a single player. And so I'd love for you just to maybe to share Wayne's story, but then also you also mentioned the environment of college football now. And we know players leave and players come. And I'd love just maybe after that to hear about what you see within the portal world and college football, what you see with NIL, how that's affecting you, or if it's affecting you. And maybe we'll talk about that a little bit after you just kind of give the leadership from Wayne.
Yeah, it's so easy to talk about Wayne. We can talk all day and make the make the talk all about him. What a special man. And just going back, he was a running back, and we had a lot of injuries that were carried over from the year before, a lot of kind of uncertainty. And so we were trying to build up that position. And, Wayne was a guy that had production, right? He had a lot of production for you, and, just consistency over the years, it seemed. And so he's that type of guy. And then, he comes to campus for his visit, and it's like, whoa, this guy's like mature. He knows what he wants, but he's not like this. He's just super humble and wants to fit in. It's about him fitting in more to us than it is about us just like, really love, the love that we were showing him. I think it was appreciated, but it wasn't about, just like us, on our knees, begging him, and it was just like, hey, is this the right fit? And when he got here, just there was a seriousness about him, but just this personal side where you could just tell he cared about people. He didn't want to step on people's toes. There were guys that put a lot in this program. He was really careful to just handle it the right way and not put himself out in front and center, but also, be an example of, what work ethic looked like, and, a great work ethic looked like, and what just the ways that you can just make yourself better without, it being, look at me, and then obviously because of the process he has and the hard work he's put in, he just, it showed on the football field too. He's a physical football player and did some things, and he got better the entire season. But it was he got here in the end of June, beginning of July, and by the middle of August, he was voted a team captain for us, just like he was for you. And and there wasn't. I was appreciative of the team that they took, and I thought it said a lot about our team, that they looked at a transfer coming in, and it wasn't about a popularity contest or anything like that. They saw those leadership qualities in Wayne, and we're like, man, if we want to be good, we need guys like him leading our program. And they voted him, and he was just I think he was in tears because he never saw that coming. He never felt like, oh, that's the aspiration. I'm going to be a captain. I've been a captain before in my previous, program at Virginia. And so that wasn't the expectation. The expectation was, man, this is my last year, and I'm going to make the most of it. And he certainly did that. And in the bowl game, he rattled off a big run, and he looked better than ever. And I'm hearing great things about how his training's going, and I know he's going to do special things, in the game of football, but he's going to do even greater things beyond football. Just the way he lives his life and how he's going to lead, on down the road, no matter what he does.
If I could add to that for our listeners, I was coaching at BYU and we recruited Wayne. He's serving a mission for our faith in Nicaragua, civil unrest there. And there's all kinds of stuff happening. He's right in the middle of that, trying to share a message about the gospel. And so the maturity and the life experiences that he had, I think certainly put him well on his way. And I saw the same thing at Virginia. And so as we kind of take the story about Wayne, in my personal opinion, the transfer portal isn't all bad. And quite frankly, coaches have done it forever. They leave one place for another for a better opportunity or a better fit or to add more value. But it's a unique and challenging landscape now that you as a head coach are navigating. And in that one case, wow, did that work not only great for the program, but for the player, right? And when that happens, it's hard to say that the transfer process is a negative. There's certainly other sides to it, but I'd love just to hear your kind of thoughts on the portal's effect as we talked about a changing environment, and then maybe we'll lead into now maybe the inducements that come to get players to transfer either legally or illegally, and both are going on.
No, you're exactly right. And when I go to speaking events and people ask about the portal, and just kind of they always make it sound like it's craziness, and it's hard. It's really hard because you realize, any day you can wake up and there might be someone that's in your program or looking to just the right opportunity, and I think there are times and places when even you want, if we're doing what, at least with my coaching philosophy, what we want, and I want to make this one of the greatest experiences of our players' lives. I know that's what it was for me as a college football player, and helped me grow to be, who I am today. I hope that happens in our program. I hope that happens here at UW. But, playing is one of the, and enjoying that part of football is part of the fun too. And there just sometimes are changes, right? I came to this program, and that changed. There might be another player that comes into our program, and that changes the dynamic of what the depth chart might be, or things like that. And so I get even the other end of, once in a while there is a time and place for someone to go find an opportunity, and I'll hopefully have that relationship where we can give them a big hug and know that 20 years down the road, we're both going to be able to cross paths and look at each other and be really appreciative of that time we had together and what's happened since. But I think from our philosophy, we right now have 8 guys here that we recruited from the portal to come, and really what they are, they're guys that we've identified to help fill spots, maybe where we got some young up and comers, or recruited some, guys from our high school class that we know are going to be really good, but we just need to bridge that gap just a little bit, and a guy like Wayne, is perfect because he was a 1-year guy. We knew we had some guys that were in our program, running backs, that were going to flourish and rise up. But Wayne brought in just some a veteran feel to us, a lot of snaps. And so, he just provides some stability in that room. And that's what we're looking to do. And, just not wholesale and because I think that can lead to success for a year or so. But I think if you just are really all about that and building your team that way, it's hard to sustain it over the long run and really grow that tight knit feel that we want. Because there's going to be close games. I don't care how good your football team is. There's going to be times and moments where adversity hits you, and you need those guys that have been around and they're the right people. And they've been through it together to where when those moments come, there's that trust we're talking about. There's that extra, that depth of just fight that they're going to have because this place is really important to them and they've been through so much together. And when it comes to that close game and that finish, we're going to fight because it means that much more. And it's not about me. It's about everyone else around me. I don't want to let them down. And so I feel that happens just, because of continuity, whether it's coaches, but obviously right now we're talking about players. And so, the other part of the portal is what you alluded to. I always tell those that I'm speaking to, I entered the transfer portal. I hate to say it, right? But there was an opportunity for me, and I felt like UW was a great opportunity for me and my family. And it has been, but I moved too. And so it'd be really kind of hypocritical for me to sit there and say that, the portal is not a great thing when, that's something that I did and have done a couple times, throughout the years with moves to different programs.
I think really that players recognize honesty, and when a coach and a leader, because I've done the same, and quite frankly, my motives were similar, right? It was for growth, advancement, and development. And I think for the most part, when young people do it, it's for the same reason, right? For more growth, development, advancement, and a lot of it's about their role. But I think when a leader shares that just openly and authentically, there's more credibility gained rather than judgment passed and a barrier. And so I think, as you mentioned, you just hope, right, that it's for reasons that are sincere and will be lasting and will be helpful. And you hope the fit is great for everybody if that happens. And the legislation around it, right? I know there's lots of that as you consider the recruiting process, and there are programs and there are people, right, in any industry that will do things within the existing rules, and there are those that are outside of that. And at least in the Mid-Atlantic area, there's the population was different. I'm wondering in the Pac-12. Have you seen much of the tampering components? And it doesn't need to be specific stories, but have you felt that culture at all increase maybe as the portal is going a little bit longer now in terms of number of years it's been, or has that really not been a factor for you in terms of just ethical?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all aware that it happens. I feel like first and foremost, I always look at myself and like, what can I do to just try to lower the percentages of something happening where someone's being pulled from my program. And I think it's never foolproof, because I think with NIL and all that kind of stuff too, that adds another layer to it. But as the head coach, and I just feel like my job is to facilitate this atmosphere, this environment for both coaches and players that is just special to be a part of. And in the end, they see that there's a plan for each and every one of them to get on the football field. There might be a plan for, their development and growth. And they just, again, goes back to that investment that they feel you're making. So I always kind of, in everything, and this isn't just with the portal or transfers, but I always point the fingers back at myself and just like, how can I just do everything I can do to worry about what I can control, and make it to where, there's an emotional piece to this too, right? Where it's like, man, I just do not want to leave this. I love being here. And it's amazing what can happen when you make it so strong, and they love walking into the facility, and they know they're going to work probably harder here than they were somewhere else, but they respect that. And they know that again is going to make them the best they can be, which is going to lead to growth that they wouldn't have at some other place. And most importantly, experiences and moments in their journey that they just, are not replaceable somewhere else. And, that again, trying to make that atmosphere, the coaches are part of that atmosphere and that environment. And, that's the way I kind of always look at it. We've been really fortunate here this year. We've done a couple different things, just guys deciding to come back for another year and not going to the NFL. And the excitement they have about the next season, but also them knowing they're going to be better and their growth is going to continue to happen because of great coaches I have here on the staff. And then, just entering the portal, we've had very few that have left. And so, I don't feel that impact, even though I know the tampering piece is happening out there. I don't feel that impact as much on my program. I think when I did feel it probably with most is when I was first taking the job here, and that's when your program is vulnerable and there's change and turnover and things are happening and you don't quite have all those relationships in place. That's when I probably felt it the most as far as what was happening and people reaching out to probably our guys through back routes.
Understand that there's so much within what you just said. And I love the idea of doing what you can do and control what you can control and be accountable for the things that will make a difference. And the relational part of that and the trust was right at the core of what I was hearing from you. And the other part is everybody wants to know the plan for them. And so in the world of academics, individualized learning plans have proven to be so successful. And there were the days of group study hall where there might be 20 players sitting around a table and they're just putting in time. And that compared to specific tasks for specific classes with specific criteria and maybe a personal mentor that's knowledgeable in that area to help them on their specific journey within academics is empowering. And people don't want to leave places where they're cared for really well, but also they know the plan and the growth pattern that they can follow. And that cements this idea of, wait, why would I leave if I have that here? And so there's an accountability piece, which I heard you say for each program and coach to actually keep their players. And man, when they're cared for well, and they have a role or they know what their role could be, it's stickier, right? And it's more lasting and it's more fun to be part of an organization like that.
Yeah. And just in regards, you brought up academics too. I mean, I think there's some things that we do with our staff. I'm not saying we're the only ones that have ever done this or do this because I've been a part of programs and obviously brought that with me. But there's this investment that we have, I think, that many coaches don't have with their players individually and the details that go into. I mean, there's really no surprises that we have when it comes to the academics because we're so in it, and the way we coordinate meetings with all of our academic advisors literally weekly. Our guys know that, man, this coaching staff, they do care about us, truly more than just football players or, guys that are, being moved around on a football field to help us, score touchdowns and get stops.
Yeah. So the number of times I've heard you talk about your staff, and wow, from the position of a head coach, does that ever change your day when you're by who you're surrounded by? And I would love just maybe a summary of the kind of staff that you've put together and where they came from and what you're looking for. And I ask this to almost every head coach because I'm so aware of the people around you and how much influence that has, not only on you, but everyone in the organization. And so what was your approach when you put together your staff and then who you brought to the University of Washington?
Yeah, I think, having done it, and again, this is where my journey, I think, is different. And I just appreciate it so much. And I think it's helped us have a staff right now, that believes in my philosophy, because going back 20 years ago, when I started coaching at Sioux Falls, Chuck Morrell, our co-D coordinator, we were in it together for 10 years. We picked up Ryan Grubb, who's my offensive coordinator, in 2007. And just those two guys right there, just the loyalty that they had back then when we were, ground level NAI program, and doing some amazing things. And those are still some of the most enjoyable days of our lives coaching football, just because we were still young and just kind of figuring things out and doing it together. But, as I've gone through the years at different places, I went from being a head coach in 2005 to 2009 back to being a coordinator at Southern Illinois University, Eastern Michigan, Fresno State, Indiana. That was my path before coming back, and 10 years later being a head coach again. And the staff just generally is made up, for the most part, except for one or two coaches, of one guy here and one guy there. Might be strength staff, the coordinators, obviously, but it's the guys that I worked with that I looked at and knew that, when you're spring recruiting and it's, 6 o'clock and they're not done yet. They're going to another spring ball practice and then going to drive that night until midnight. They're the ones that were the hardest workers. They're the ones that truly and genuinely, when you sit around a staff room and you're working with them, having these one-on-one conversations, even, that they genuinely care about the wellness of the players. It isn't just something that they're saying and then they're doing something different. They're the ones that I knew were the experts, when it comes to X's and O's. And I was always impressed by, their growth mindset and wanting to always get better and evolve and change with the times of football, of the game, And so these were guys, and, take a Eric Schmidt, who was at Southern Illinois, and Ron McKeefery. And of course, Ryan Grubb came to me at Eastern Michigan, and, go to Fresno and meet some more coaches in Indiana. I met William Inge and Nick Sheridan. I mean, these guys are all just some of the guys that I just really connected with. And, everyone's got different personalities. And that's what makes it great. I don't want a bunch of coaches like me. I want people that complement me, that have other strengths, and I can draw off those strengths and they can fill the gaps, when it comes to those things. But we all have a very similar philosophy, and that's to impact the men that we're with, and to enjoy the moments that we have, and to realize that, again, the journey that we're all on.
Yeah. That there's one of the articles I got my hands on relatively early, and I learned from an organizational design specialist that helped me so much, named Paul Gustafson. And he talked about organizations and about the people you surround yourself with. And it's really cool. What they found was the more homogeneous, that means the more the same people were, actually, the more averagely they performed. Yeah. But if they're aligned, the more differences there are on a staff, as long as they're aligned and then trust and respect one another, they succeed either wildly if they're different. If they fail miserably, it's because of lack of communication or respect or trust. So people can be comfortable together and like-minded and like personality, but that usually leads to good but not great results. As you talked about, different personalities, but they're hard workers and they're experts, but they bring different things. When those different things are valued, you have a more comprehensive leadership team, and those are usually the ones that have the greatest chance to succeed. And right when they recognize and respect one another for the differences and don't make the differences reasons to be different, right? It really is more fun as well, because the diversity, there's always, a different approach.
Yeah. I mean, because that within the team, we have all those different types of, diverse personalities and upbringings, and even geographical areas where people are from. And so having all these varieties of different coaches and personalities is important, because they all can connect. I mean, I'd use Jamarcus Shepard because he's the very opposite end, and I was part of trying to hire Jamarcus back in 2014 when I was the coordinator at Eastern Michigan. And we just stayed in touch ever since then. And I've watched from afar, had a lot of appreciation for what he did, and being a receivers coach and a co-coordinator, and got a chance a year ago to hire him, and what he brings is something completely different than what I bring to the program.
Part of that too is the self-assessment that each of us do on ourselves, realizing this is who I am, this is my strength, but that also means these are the weaknesses, and then working hard to find someone to complement and fill that. Right there's some self-assessment work that has to come from a leader to do that. And I think the ones that will do that, wow, they're the ones that have the best chance for success, because they're already realizing they're flawed as well, and they know their strengths, but that also means there's some holes too that someone else needs to help with.
No question. I feel that's a lot of what our staff is, from me to the staff, but also even within each offense and defensive staff room. I think it's been built and designed, and I feel it's also solid enough to where you lose one of those pieces at some point. You can fill it in. It doesn't have to be the exact same personality. It will be a different element that that next person would bring, that is a strength that they can add to the staff as well.
Well, and the criteria, it just seems like, as I listen to you, you're really clear on what you're looking for. And so hard work, I know just by this short time together, I know that's something really important to you. Expertise, I know is really important to you. Loyalty, I know is really important to you. Building trust with players. And so, man, when the leader is that well defined of what they're looking for, it's easier when you're on the recruiting trail or you run into other coaches to know whether they're going to fit with you or not. And the ones that do, you keep track of them, you might coach with them, but when there's openings, that list becomes pretty small and pretty specific based on the criteria that you've already been kind of resonate with you. Yeah.
And I think that's what I share. And, even just yesterday, there's a coach, a friend of mine that may lose a coach, and I'm asking a friend or two, some resources that I think, just, hey, who do you know? And then my question to them is like, okay, does he fit this person? And that's so important, otherwise going to work isn't as enjoyable. And I think what I've seen over many years is when you love going to work and it ain't work, right? It isn't work. And so when you love going to work every single day, and you enjoy it, it's amazing how fast the day goes. It is amazing how many hours you're willing to put in. You got to have the support from home too, right? That's a big piece of it. But we accomplish so much, and that goes with our players too. And they love coming into the building and want to spend extra hours. And they just, hey, if I run into this coach, it's all good. We're going to have a great time, and they'll come up into the offices and talk. When they enjoy being around the facility, it's amazing what we can accomplish. And when you stack one day on top of another, I mean, the growth just goes in so many directions, and it becomes so deep and so thick. I mean, it's amazing what your team looks like, whether it be in January and February, but how much different it is when you get to August, and then even what it looks like, especially when you get to the end of the season in November and December. I think our team, from a standpoint of just belief and trust, I mean, we were different in September than we were in December, and a lot of it just had to do with, hey, we just keep building every single day, and every moment is a growth moment and learning moment.
Yeah. There's three components that you put together really well. There's loving what you do. And luckily you love football, right? You love the schematics, you love the coaching, you love the leadership. There's so many parts I can hear that you love. The how you do it, there's a relational part I'm listening to, right? So here's what you're doing, here's how you're doing it, and you're really clear on that. But then there's who you're doing it with. And sometimes those first two parts without the last part diminishes or gets in the way of the other two parts. And so when you get all three of those together, the what you do, and if you love that, and how you're doing it, and then with whom, man, if all three of those boxes are checked, pretty cool to show up to work every day, even if you call it work, right? To do that.
And I think one element to us is just our staff is, I try not to, I want things done, and we're talking about details and exactly that type of person you're looking for and specifics that way. But in the end, I'm trying to provide a plan, and then not trying to micromanage, let them make it their own. I was an offensive coordinator and called plays for 20 years, never was at a game I'd never called, and how hard that is to turn it over, but knowing that I got to do this. This is a person I believe in. This is a staff I believe in. And, let that happen, because now, what happens is, hey, that framework and the system is there, but they're going to make it their own. And if they're just waiting in a room, waiting for you to walk in and say, okay, I saw this, we're going to call this, we're going to do this, we're going to, this is the game plan. Just, the amount of time they're going to put in and what that's going to look like isn't going to be the same. And I just feel like our staff as a whole, there's just so much ownership, and they know that their input matters, and their input's going to help us lead to wins. And that I'm listening. It might not mean that today, we're going to do exactly what you just brought up, but it's in the back of my mind, and 2 weeks from now it might apply, and we're going to use it at that time.
The fulfillment in the workforce, there's been a lot of great research done, and it talks about 3 things, which you said a little bit differently, but it ties to these. When people are fulfilled in the workplace, they have autonomy,
Mm-hmm.
they have mastery, a chance to learn and grow, and what those 2 things already, what you just described is you're not micromanaging, you still are in charge and you're giving direction, but the autonomy is a huge part of it. And the mastery, that kind of happens when someone's given space to learn and grow, right? And become, and as you mentioned, because you're accountable for the results as the head coach. Yeah. And when I used to be a defensive coordinator, and when you turn that over and you're not the play caller, but still accountable for the result, right? There's a friction point internally along the way where there's a tough one, but necessary, I think, for the organization to move forward and to become. And it just is, it's tough to do, but necessary, I think, as you've already found out. And when, much like the trust is established between player and coach, or player and coach to coach, mm-hmm. is also, right, head coach to coordinator to position, right? It kind of resonates through the whole thing. So maybe as we close, maybe big picture, if we step back just for a second, and you see the direction of college football, and wow, you've been in it a long time now and at different levels. And as you mentioned earlier on in our conversation, as the environment's changing around, and there's conference realignments, and there's, we've talked about some other issues, just from a sense of where do you see it going? And what do you think college football will look like in the near future?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we're all guessing at this time. You saved the hardest question for last, because it's stuff that, again, I'm not in control of. But I really don't know. Just what it looks like. But you just got to be, I think, in today's age, you just got to be ready to evolve and change with it. And make the most of it, and really go back to what matters most. And that's, I think, all I can do. I definitely love this game, and it's gave me great lessons and over the years. And so I want to continue to use the game to help impact. I hope that we can, and I think we always can find those ways to do that, no matter what the scope of college football looks like. And so that matters to me, and I'm going to try to use the game that way to help help shape lives. But that's as far as what it looks like. I don't know. It's changing, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
I think it's a fair and, quite frankly, a realistic answer. And those that can predict or are predicting, they don't know either. But what we do know from the seat that you have and that I held, and we're lucky enough to have participated, the chance to impact young people through a really cool platform and powerful platform of college football, where you get motivated learners at stages of their lives that are so moldable and shapeable and willing to listen and want to be developed. And to your point, regardless of what the rest looks like, if that point is held on to, then college football is preserved.
Yeah.
If the motive of that part goes away, then it also doesn't really matter what the rest looks like. Yeah. And so I love the personalization, I think, of what you shared of the impact on young people through this really cool platform that we have, and the rest of it is going to be whatever the rest of it is. But if that personal belief and prioritization system goes away, what difference does it make what the rest of it looks like anyway? either. So I love the approach, and just really appreciate the time we've had, even though we haven't known each other well. It's fun to watch from afar. And right, as coaches, you kind of pay attention to what others do and how they're doing it, and you look at the success, and grateful that you just made some time for us, and just continued success with what you're doing. And it's just so much fun to learn from you and for others to have listened to you. So thanks so much.
Well, that goes both ways. And I'm sure somewhere in there over this last hour, there's been something that I said that I probably stole from something I read from you. You know, I don't know what that was exactly, because it might have been 15 years ago or 10 years ago, but I think that's what it's all about. You know, it's just, you find those people that, and you hear them speak, or you read articles, and there's just pieces that, that's who you are. And I know I've connected and just always associated you with kind of being someone who's in line with my beliefs and desires as far as how the game is and all that. And so ton of respect for you. And you do a great job with this here too. So,
so just for transparency, here's what I just took from you, and right, I let's see if I get it lined up. So I love to learn, right? But the learning motive is not only because it feels good and it's fun, it's to help pass on to other people, and especially young people. And so, man, when I get a chance to be with another learner, another young person is going to be helped, right? It's really fun. And so thanks again for not only what you're doing, but how you're doing it. And so, Brian, we'll head it over to you to close this out.
Well, it was great to connect somebody who led the nation in passing. An old linebacker like Bronco. There are still those threads.
Hey, so here, hold on. So I actually played safety. It might have looked like I played linebacker because I was so stiff and slow as a safety. So I get where someone might think I was a linebacker, but in junior college, I actually played corner, which, that's why they moved me to safety.
I'm not going to mention anything about your hands then.
Thank you very much.
The defensive side of the ball, but
Kalen,
we appreciate it. You guys had a fantastic season up there on Montlake. Best of luck, moving forward. You guys definitely have raised that bar a little bit, and I know you're talking about that a little bit earlier with your team, how they've raised the bar internally. But best of luck going forward, and we appreciate you jumping on here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, for Kalen DeBoer and Bronco Mendenhall, I'm Bryan Fischer. We'll catch you again next week here on HeadCoachU.